Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's program, Wintering Well with Kim Langley. Thank you to Kim for agreeing to provide this workshop on rest and restoration for us here at NAMI Greater Cleveland. Many of you probably know me from the previous webinars that we provide. You may be familiar with NAMI Greater Cleveland already. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Our work is dedicated to improving quality of life for individuals with mental illness and their families. And we do that by providing education, support, information and referral, and advocacy. Today's program is part of NAMI Greater Cleveland's faith-based initiative, in which we provide customized education on special topics related to the intersection of mental health and well-being with religion, spirituality, self-reflection, introspection, mindfulness, and we'll be experiencing some of that in this workshop with Kim today. Again, please note that the webinar is being recorded, will be posted to the NAMI Greater Cleveland YouTube channel later this week. The slides have been shared with you. The handouts and resources have been shared with you via email prior to the workshop, but I will also be dropping them when prompted, links to the files in the chat, so you can also open them that way if you did not see that email. We're definitely hoping for this to be an interactive experience, so definitely feel free to utilize the chat feature. I'm going to be in the background while Kim is presenting, monitoring the chat. We'll make sure that questions are addressed, or if you want to share anything, that is most welcome. And we'll also have opportunity for reading some poetry, doing some journaling prompts. So it's helpful if you have pen and paper handy, or if you want to type, that's also appropriate. So with that being said, I think I will pass the baton to Kim to get us started. So thanks everyone for being here.
It's my pleasure. And am I speaking loud enough, Matt, for everyone to hear, do you think?
Yes, yep, you're
Okay,
coming through clear.
very good. So let me start by saying that I'm very conscious that my reflections today come from a place of privilege because I'm now semi-retired from my own business as a speaker and trainer, and that was and is a job that I love. I have a home that's comfortable and I have a life that allows me the leisure to think too much. So these are, um, these are gifts and I'm very aware of that. I would also say that I'm hoping today to be a catalyst for some worthy reflections, muscular writing, and lively conversation on a topic that has dogged me for a long time, making friends with winter. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where there is plenty of snow and more than the usual number of hills. And you really haven't lived until you've learned how to drive a stick shift. Am I giving away my age now or what? On a 30-degree incline in the snow where you, where you can't get up on the clutch too fast or your car will slow down the hill. And like most kids, I really love the snow and hair-raising sled rides down a path in the woods. And when I think about it now, I'm actually lucky to be alive because that was really nuts. And if the parents had known about it, I'm sure we wouldn't have been allowed to do it. So it's still a source of gratitude to me on a bad day that I live and breathe and didn't end up with my head in a tree. And I've lived in Cleveland for almost about 40 years now. And um, we sure have our share of dark days that are cloudy with rain, and snow and more snow. And we're lucky here in Cleveland today to have sun, which is very motivating. But this past January, we had one of the darkest Januaries, the least sunlight day after day after day since they started keeping records. So by the end of the month, my family agreed that we should all pin a medal on each other's chest for surviving that. But I recognize now that I owe a significant debt to a mentor. And I don't remember who it was, if it was a counselor or a friend or who, but I can remember, I can't see the face, but I can hear the voice. And I was whinging, as they would say in Great Britain, about winter. And this person called my bluff in the gentlest way imaginable, saying, "Are you really going to spend the rest of your life complaining about what amounts to 25% of every year?" It just stopped me in my tracks because there's nothing like someone who will speak the truth in love to you and help you reframe a situation. And this one hit me like a brick in the head. So it's been more than 5 years now since I took a personal solemn vow to try to make friends with winter. And I'm happy to share some of those gains with you. And of course, as most of you who are here know, and what took me quite a while to find out, is that it isn't about the weather, it's about us and what happens in the weather. I mean, we are animals, and some of our response to winter, I suppose, is a deep down millions-year-old, animal thing, but it's also a spiritual and a psychological condition, and that part at least I have some control on. So we all know that to make friends with winter might be a noble event, but friendship can't be forced. And so that was something I remembered quickly when I undertook this journey, because the first thing and all that I was able to do was to cultivate the intention of making friends with winter. We were in no way friends yet. We weren't even going out for coffee. And I lingered there in that good intention for most of the first winter that I had kind of made this vow. And of course, the good news is that challenges in life keep unfolding like or dampened origami. So the next winter, I was able to cultivate something that was a little bit more Buddhist in its wisdom. And that meant incorporating the idea that you can love some, if you can't love something, a first step is to stop hating it, to stop judging it, to stop complaining about it, and to adopt an it is what it is approach toward it. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, since some of you struggle with mental health issues yourselves, or you support somebody who does, because when we have some in our family, of course, like every family does. And so we're all, I think, learning, I hope at least, learning how to get better and better as the years go by, at recognizing that this is one of my favorite slogans: I can argue with reality, but I only lose 100% of the time. That's a quote from Byron Katie. I don't go with all of Byron Katie's ideas, but that quote was a game changer for me. I argue with reality because I'm human, but I only lose 100% of the time. And I think that really can help us in our approach to wintering, whether that's spiritual wintering or psychological or just the physical wintering that many of us are experiencing now. So I'm a recovering perfectionist who usually has some ducks to be put into a row. And last, I will say too that I was raised in a German family, and in that culture and in the American culture, relaxation can be construed as slothful. Even free time in the American culture is supposed to be productive, in that you should be pursuing a hobby or some worthwhile thing, trying a new recipe or whatever. And self-worth is really tied up with what we can produce, much more than other cultures around the world. So if you're here today because you've been beating yourself up during the whole month of January because you aren't accomplishing your to-do list, or you don't feel like doing anything, just know that this is a particularly American torture. There are, of course, some other countries that also have that attitude, but the vast majority of the world lives more slowly than we do, and with less expectation that worth is all tied up in, what you can get done. Now, I've already admitted that's one of my things. I'm a perfectionist. I have a to-do list as long as my arm, but usually, but I've also learned how to laugh at myself when I'm in this ducks in a row mood, and then I step back and I'm like, I can't even find my ducks, there's so much going on right now. Instead of getting mad at myself, I'm learning how to be with that and say, okay, tomorrow's another day, or maybe it's time for a little nap, and see if I can be re-energized when I get up, or 15 minutes of meditation, see if I can be re-energized. And if I'm not re-energized, then that's the reality that I'm dealing with. So for me, that's a lot of progress. So this is to say that our topic today, wintering well, is a real stretch for me, and it might be for some of you too. And so I really jumped at the chance to gather up all the threads of what I've been thinking about, and journaling about, and praying about, um, in terms of winter, and try to bring it toward like a growth mindset. If you're not familiar with the work of Carol Dweck, Dr. Carol Dweck, Dweck, that you might find that heartening also, and want to look it up on your own, because Carol Dweck, very useful research is uh, to remind us that it's not only valuable to take a look at setbacks or trauma or how people struggle with stress, it's also very helpful to look at people's growth mindset, and as much as possible for us to adopt a growth mindset. I haven't, so an example of that regarding wintering would be I haven't fully accepted or made friends with winter yet. This whole notion that you're still on the path, that it's never written in stone. That's part of growth mindset. There's a lot more to it than that. And I'm sure some of you would enjoy watching her TED talk or just learning a little bit about her. Okay, so I'm almost finished with my remarks, and then we're going to do some writing and reflecting and see how all this feels to you. But I want to mention that when we lived closer to the cycle of seasons, and we know this from a lot of history and research and so on. When more of us made a living as hunter gatherers and fishers and farmers and herders, human beings were less likely to question winter and more likely to prepare for it. So we have the luxury of, most of us anyway, have the luxury of warm houses and or places to escape the weather. But in the olden days, it was just a fact of life. People didn't even have the luxury of complaining about the weather or saying, the days are so short, I can't wait till spring comes. And if you're surrounded by people who talk like that, part of your strategy might be to, consider putting up a little invisible boundary. I actually have a Wonder Woman bracelet that somebody gave me. And it was because I was giving a talk and I was saying, if you work with negative Ned or Nellie, for example, or if you live with them, you might want to consider, whether you're a man or a woman, taking on Wonder Woman's ability to, cross her gauntlets and the bullets start flying, pew, pew, pew. And she does this, and there's just this, they just all bounce off. And I often think of that as a really good image for what we need to do psychologically sometimes when we have negative Neds and Nellies in our lives, because we're trying to do the best we can. And other people do seem sometimes to delight in harshing our buzz. So that's it's helpful to remember A, your Wonder Woman bracelet, and B, that when human beings lived closer to the earth than we tend to do now, they didn't complain about winter. They prepared for it, they acquiesced to it. Sometimes they even welcomed it as a respite from the heavy labors that came with spring, summer, and fall. And in also in the olden days, an elder in many cultures is described as somebody who has lived for many winters or known many winters. And I don't think that's an accident that people used to um, think about age as winters experiences. Nobody says she's lived through many summers, because that's easier. And to live through many winters was a mark of respect for people's long and growing wisdom and their ability to endure. And we've come so far from that kind of knowing. I mean, most of us can't even imagine the thoughts of satisfaction that must come from a fully stocked root cellar or a smokehouse full of winter provisions that we prepared with our own hands for our family, friends, or tribe, or the pride of a woman who steps back from an overflowing pantry full of fruits and vegetables that she has put up, as my grandma would have said, with great diligence. It's even fascinating to me that I learned recently that etymologists, people who study the history of language, trace the word bed back to the Old English bed, B-E-D-D, which is bed, couch, resting place, and also garden plot. And in Proto-Germanic, which is what our English language flows from, baja, which is probably a precursor of the word bed, is a sleeping place dug in the ground. And that's one of the reasons I brought these little foxes to our attention, and other creatures who dig into the ground. It's been a huge consolation to me since I first learned this to think about how, as eager as I am for the daffodils to come up and so on, under the ground, millions of biota, billions actually of biota, are living their best little microscopic lives, doing what makes soil fertile. And worms and queen bees are nestling in the leaves that we didn't rake up last fall, hopefully on purpose so that insects would have a place to overwinter, and so on. Even though we can't see it, all this life is going on underneath the surface of the ground. And I think it's reasonable to say underneath the surface in us. And that light does break through, even though sometimes it seems like it's taking a little bit longer than we want it to. Warmth does tend to return, and the growth cycle does begin again. So maybe our ancestors had long memories of all the time when we too created a bed nest of branches and moss to sleep on, or maybe they took their cue from the winter habits of bears and foxes. One thing we do know for sure is that our whole human arrangement with winter changed with the invention of electric lights and the end of the more natural rhythm that used to beckon us to go to sleep when it was dark and rise when it was day. So if you find this season of the year a bit of a struggle, you're not alone. And that's partly your animal self wanting to respond to the natural rhythm, which we don't live as close to in the modern world. So let's take a minute now to dwell in quiet with the next two images that I'm going to show you. I have given credit to the artists when I can find their names at the site of each image. And when you are ready, and for those who joined us late, we made a quick announcement that you might want to grab pen and paper or your journal, or you can type on whatever device you're on if you want. But we are going to have a couple short writing opportunities. Excuse me while I figure out why my slide didn't change. There we go. Um, and so we're going to start with words, and then we're going to, give me 1 second. Yeah, we're going to start with these words, and then we're going to move to an image reflection. So this is a 5-minute quick write that I'm inviting you to. And tell your inner critic to just take a hike for a little bit, because nobody's going to see this but you, unless you choose to share some of it in the chat box, which enriches us all, and I encourage it, but it's by no means necessary. And I would like you to just let these words and phrases kind of wash over you in a very free and not anxious way, okay? And then you're going to write for 5 minutes, and I'll tell you when it starts, because I'll start a timer for us. So what's your approach to wintering? I've shared mine. What came up in you while I was sharing, or what brought you here today? Are you more like a Finn, a person from Finland, looking for a sauna? Or are you more like a fox in a den? Are you more a Canadian caribou, or are you more a Floridian flight risk? Are you an inexhaustible winter carb baker, or are you a snow fort and snowman builder? Are you a cruise ship stowaway, or are you a devourer of hot cocoa and good books in the winter? And maybe none of those is right for you. So you're grown-ups, you follow your own wisdom. Anything that's right for you, or a combination of these above, all of those can be a springboard for your 5-minute quick write, which can begin now. Thank you, some of you, for putting your selections in the chat box. Is not necessary, but it's fun to see what makes up our group. All right, keep going. You still have 4 minutes to reflect on this. Your time is only half up, but if you're running out of ideas, you may want to reflect on, where did you first learn your attitudes toward winter, and how many days old were you when you realized that winter was something you could make friends with if it wasn't. Or maybe you love winter and you want to reflect on the gratitude that you feel for that. Take it where it wants to go. Just listen to your spirit. All right, so that was time. You're going to have more opportunities to reflect, but so keep going and listen with one ear if some really good thing is happening for you. That would be great. And I'd like to do a new share for just a second and take a minute to offer a prayer that I really like and that comforts me in the winter. And Matt has shared this with you, I believe, or if he hasn't, he will. And it's by somebody I really like, who isn't afraid to walk up to the good things you're grateful for in the things that you struggle with. she's a both and person. She's good at balancing the tension between what we wish and what we have and what we accept and what we need to change. And at least I think so. And so here's her prayer. Blessing in the chaos. To all that is chaotic in you, let there come silence. Let there be a calming of the clamoring, a stilling of the voices that have laid their claim on you, that have made their home in you, that go with you even to the holy places, but will not let you rest, will not let you hear your life with wholeness or feel the grace that fashioned you. Let what distracts you cease. Let what divides you cease. Let there come an end to what diminishes. I love that prayer, especially for the winter. And I think it's worth, if you're a praying person, uh, reminding ourselves of over and over, because we get caught up in the immediate a lot of times and we lose the long perspective that tends to bring us peace. And that often comes with silence. That's one of the reasons that we're having some silent writing time today, so that you can hear your own voice, hear your own, give your own spirit a chance to catch up with you. So, to all that is chaotic in you, let there come silence. That is one of my hopes for our time together. All right, let me um, back to the slides. And if anybody wants to put anything in the chat, a few of you did, thank you, you made me chuckle, that you wrote, please do. We won't necessarily talk about it, but I know many people enjoy looking at them. And if I should have said earlier, if you're annoyed by the chat, which I know some people are, perhaps it will help you to know that you can put your cursor on the chat box and drag it over to the edge of your screen or down into a corner. Some of you probably saw me do that while we were having the 5 minutes of quiet. I looked at what was written there and then I dragged it off to the side and then I minimized it. So I invite you to do that if it's a pest, if it's pesky for you. All right, so this is a visual meditation that we're going to do with another 5-minute quick write. And visual meditation just means I sit with this image for a little bit and I see what comes up in me. And then I might pursue whatever is coming up in me in writing for myself, just for myself. And um, I urge you to be open to both what you might like and whatever like positive feelings or thoughts come from this picture. And I also urge you to not shy away from any resistance that you might feel, because sometimes resistance is where the good energy is, and that's what your spirit wants to explore. All right. So whatever comes, we let it come. We don't have to be afraid of what is. We only have to, make decisions around what is. All right. So here's one image, and then here's the second image. Right with your senses, how winter smells, tastes, feels, whatever comes up in you, as I said before. And then here's a screen with both images. So you can pick one or you can write about both of them for 5 minutes starting now. You have about 1 more minute. All right, so time's up. Now, again, I invite you to put things in the chat if you would like to share any insight that you have. Sometimes that enriches all of us, but you don't have to. It's never share or die in my classes. But I would like to share one of the things that came to me that was a spiritual insight. And it's also something that I pray and that comforts me in winter. And that's why I want to share it with you. So we're a very diverse group, of course. I don't even imagine that everyone believes in a personal God. And those who do believe in a personal God may have all different kinds of images for who that God might be. And some folk who are deeply spiritual like to refer to that which is beyond or the more or love, the love that animates all. And so, whatever your image is, you can bring that to what I'm going to share next. And it's a song. I'm going to sing you just the first verse. It's called God Beyond All Names. And Matt, if you want to, there's a lovely rendition of it on YouTube. Maybe you can throw the link into the chat. People could copy it to listen to later.
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you. And the lyrics are there also. But here's how it starts, and I'll tell you why this feels right to me in February. So it starts, God beyond our dreams, you have stirred in us a memory. You have placed your powerful spirit in the hearts of humankind. All around us we have known you. All creation lives to hold you. In our living and our dying, we are bringing you to birth. So that chorus, all around us we have known you, all creation lives to hold you. That I had a big like pow when I first heard that song because I realized how judgy I am, how judgy the culture encourages me to be. Actually, that's not an excuse, just a reason. Um, and I, in my heart of hearts, up until I start on this journey, I really think I would have said, all around us we have known you, spring, summer, and fall, or all creation lives to hold you, but maybe not winter so much. And now I feel this invitation to dive into the spirituality of winter, the spirituality of waiting, the spirituality of when my heart is both frozen and, full of life and joy. Um, I don't know if that helps you, but it helped me a lot. And that's one of the reasons I chose these images of all the good stuff underground, peacefully being themselves and doing what the season invites you to do. And so this year, now the sixth year of my journey, I suppose, started. Um, I read an article in January about what this concept, which I had never heard of, but which I found very useful, slow January. And in America, we're really big on making New Year's resolutions. And it's January in 2024. I'm going to lose 10 pounds. And there's a million articles about, you know, how to be healthier as the new year starts. And that's all good. I don't criticize that. I mean, we all need motivations to, do better and adopt the growth mindset and so on. But there can also be a lot of guilt and shame and what a loser I am when it's hard to follow up on those resolutions. And you probably have seen the research, like more than 2/3 of them are not acted on after the first 3 weeks. Then, that's human. But the idea that a slow January, a January where I do try to squeeze in some self care, where I allow myself without guilt to read more chapters in a book than I might at another time of the year, to waste a little time. There's a concept in the Scandinavian countries that's really we don't have a word for exactly what it is. The closest word we have would be something like daydreaming, but it's literally a word that means doing nothing, just doing nothing, and like that's okay. And the expectation is that you might do more of that in the winter than you do during the other seasons. I would say that's something our culture could really benefit from, and maybe something that a lot of you could benefit from. And I noticed that because I tried to give myself a slow January, I have more energy now that February is here. I guess we walk around tired a lot of the times. And I didn't make a big agenda for myself this year. I didn't make a New Year's resolution this year. I just thought, let's see what happens if I allow myself a slow January. Now, I still have plenty to do. I mean, we have construction going on in our house, and oh my gosh, I won't give you my to-do list. You have your own. But it's not like you stop, or but you can certainly, most people can squeeze in like a pajama evening. You come home from work, you eat something, and you get in your pajamas by 6:30, and there's a certain joy in that. Um, so you get the idea. If anybody has a reflection in the chat box, is there anything, Matt, that anyone's saying? Because I'd like to affirm or address.
Not in response to that, but some folks were offering their thoughts on some of the images, on these
Yes,
images: peace, calm, warmth, protection, rest, quiet, hibernation, relaxation, silent, cuddled up, cozy.
lovely. So maybe one of the things we can do together right now is just bless all those words and make them an increasing part of our vocabulary so that we can experience them without guilt, and so that our wise person inside, I think we all have a wise person inside. I stop periodically to consult mine, okay, what do you think? And I invite you to do the same. And so that our wise person inside recognizes that those are valuable things. Those are not wasting time. Those are valuable things. And even though we all still, have to get things done and live up to our responsibilities, I'm all for that. um, there's no guilt. There shouldn't be guilt involved in legitimate self-care and legitimately responding to the seasons in the way our bodies instinctively want to respond to the seasons. And you know, if you look at the world wisdom traditions, um, you will see that even the great leaders and tone setters in world wisdom traditions, like I grew up in Christianity, so I'll give that as an example, but there are many others. Um, our leaders model rest for us. Buddhism is not a religion, it's more of a philosophy, but the Buddha spent time in silence every season, not just winter. Jesus went off to a lonely place and prayed in order to get away from the crowds. A lonely place, not meaning that he felt lonely, although he may have, but being that he just wanted to be by himself. So we have good role models for that sort of activity, and we should probably swim upstream a little bit more against American culture. Go, 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 do, and enhance BBB for ourselves. BBB. All right. Let's see. So all of you, I'm sure, know about hygge. Say that out loud now. It's just fun. Hygge. And because there have been a lot of articles about it and it's had news coverage and so on in recent years. And it's the Danish cultural expression for coziness, comfort, contentment, and conviviality in winter. And these are people who get winter, man. They really get winter. And there's a Dutch idiom for venturing out in windy weather, particularly in nature or in a park, as a means of refreshing oneself and clearing one's mind. And I can't even begin to say how to pronounce that, but it's the word at the top of the screen, Uitwaaien. That has more vowels than almost any word I've ever seen. But what a healthy idea. Look at the picture of these real live people skating on a canal outside their apartment buildings. You know, we could we could tackle a little bit more of that. In Alaska, they say there's no bad weather, there's just wrong clothing. And when I first heard that, I went out and bought myself this big, poofy, not very stylish coat that goes halfway down my calves. And my kids call it the green dumpling because it's green and I look like a dumpling in it. But it allows me to go for a walk without freezing in the winter. And so that might be a simple adjustment you would make in your life because of that. I know sometimes we let ourselves become so afraid of the ice and so on that we don't even feel comfortable walking in the snow, and yet there's not as much danger in the snow unless you're truly frail and so on. So we could probably push ourselves a little bit more to get outside and be. I think our worlds can shrink a lot when we spend the whole winter inside. So I'd like to end this part of the presentation with a poem that I really love by Theodore Resky, and it's called Root Cellar. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get rid of these floating controls so that you can see the title. Where are you? There you are. Root Cellar. And I will read it and just see what happens in you. When I use poetry in poetry circles I give, which if you love them, email me and I'll add you to the list, or workshops or whatever, I try to pick poems that are really accessible. I don't have a lot of patience with the kind of poetry where you can't possibly understand what's going on unless you know the author's entire biography. So this is my way of saying don't be nervous or afraid of poems. Just see what comes up in you, because it's a wrong question to ask what does it mean. It's a right question to ask what does it mean to me? What comes up in me when I hear that? So here we have root cellar. Nothing would sleep in that cellar, dank as a ditch. Bulbs broke out of boxes, hunting for chinks in the dark. Shoots dangled and drooped, lolling obscenely from mildewed crates. Hung down long yellow evil necks like tropical snakes. And what a congress of stinks! Roots ripe as old bait, pulpy stems, rank, silo rich, leaf mold, manure, lime, piled against slippery planks. Nothing would give up life. Even the dirt kept breathing a small breath. This is a poem that really lifts me up when I'm in the cellar. And Theodore Resky, of happy memory, he's gone now, he had plenty of mental health struggles. And he did eventually take his own life. But he left us such a beautiful legacy of the insights that he had from his struggle, and this is certainly one of them. So even though it starts out a little, I don't know, some people see it as kind of negative at the beginning, dank as a ditch, um, lolling obscenely from mildew crates and long yellow evil necks and so on. I think the poem really takes a turn at, and what a congress of stinks. it's almost like we're being invited to remember that from roots ripe as old bait and pulpy stems and rank smells and so on come often positive things. Like you can't have a good crop without manure, you can't have a good garden without leaf mold. And then the encouragement, nothing would give up life, even the dirt kept breathing a small breath. It brings tears to my eyes even now when I think about how he took his own struggle and made something inspirational out of it, at least for me. All right, so that's one of the reasons I wanted to share that with you. All right, I'm going to change screens now, and while I do that, I'm going to invite you to put something in the chat about this poem if you would like to. I hope some of you will find something that is useful. And I'd also like to invite people now, if they want to unmute themselves and share briefly so that more than one person has a chance. What's happened for you in the course of this session so far? Anybody have
Yeah, one
anything else
person
to say?
commented that they like the last two lines of that poem in particular.
In all the good, in all the best ways. Dealing with the dirt makes us strong. I see that, Judy. Thank you. Also, to remember that dirt is a living organism. You know, it has such a negative connotation in our culture. You know, dirty. Ugh, you know, it almost makes almost has connotations of, you know, shameful, or brings up like a disgust response. But part of my personal growth has been, I think, to recognize that dirt is a good and necessary thing. And maybe as we all become more conscious of global ecological crisis, I think we maybe feel more gratitude to dirt than we once did. Well, if there was anything else, Matt, you know you can interrupt me, but I would like to do a new share now, and I'm hoping that you can see a document that starts "Winter takes away the distractions." Is everyone seeing that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So here are some final reflections, things that we can talk about before our time runs out, or that you could use as journaling prompts. Matt has sent all these to you as an attachment, and you can print them or stick them in your journal, or think, meditate, or pray over them. So here's the first one. Winter takes away the distractions, the buzz, and presents us with the perfect time to rest and withdraw into a womb-like love, bringing fire and light to our hearth. What a lovely idea. And then here's a short reflection, a poem called Winter's Cloak. This year, I do not want the dark to leave me. I need its wrap of silent stillness, its cloak of long-lasting embrace. Too much light has pulled me away from the chamber of gestation. Let the dawns come late. Let the sunsets arrive early. Let the evenings extend themselves while I lean into the abyss of my being. Let me lie in the cave of my soul, for too much light blinds me, steals the source of revelation. Let me seek solace in the empty places of winter's passage, those vast, dark nights that never fail to shelter me. I wonder if anybody would like to read that poem again in their own voice and in their own way. Something happens sometimes when you read a poem out loud. You know, it comes out and it settles on both of your ears, and you hear it differently than when you read it to yourself, or like, for example, when I read it. Would anybody be willing to read Winter's Cloak? If you don't have it pulled up on your screen, I'll arrow down so that you can see it.
I'll read it.
Thank you. In your own way, at your own pace, like put your spirit into it is what I'm saying.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Winter's Cloak. This year, I do not want the dark to leave me. I need its wrap of silent stillness, its cloak of long-lasting embrace. Too much light has pulled me away from the chamber of gestation. Let the dawns come late. Let the sunsets arrive early. Let the evenings extend themselves while I lean into the abyss of my being. Let me lie in the cave of my soul, but too much light blinds me, steals the source of revelation. Let me seek solace in the empty places of winter's passage, those vast dark nights that never fail to shelter me.
Thank you. This is a lovely reading. I have a sweet friend. She's from the Society of Friends, more popularly known as Quakers. We were talking about winter one time, and she said before she goes to sleep, she has a little mantra that she says to herself, and it is peace and quiet, safe and warm. And she kind of blesses the dark before she falls asleep. And I thought, wow, what a great attitude to go to sleep in. And this poem has that spirit in a way. Let me seek solace in the empty places of winter's passage, those vast, dark nights that never fail to shelter me. Would anybody else like to throw something into the chat? We have about 5 minutes yet, or share anything. I'm not the only person here that has some wisdom around this topic. So I have a few other thought provokers to share, but we have a moment to hear your wisdom as well. All right. Well, then
I have a
let's go.
question. I have a
Oh, yes,
question.
please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe this could be a helpful question for the group. Based on your reflections on winter and learning about wintering, are there any like particular activities that you think are winter centric or winter oriented or seasonally appropriate that you think are a
Great.
good way to feel connected or to kind of improve your overall well-being during the season of winter?
Okay, I love that question because I'm such a doer that is always going to be one of my questions. Here's a couple things that help me keep my spirits up mostly during the winter. A while ago, I actually gave a whole weekend retreat on this topic, and one of the women said she was a Christian, and so she celebrates Christmas. You wouldn't have to, but I'm just using that for point of comparison. So she celebrates Christmas and she has Christmas decorations up, and she started to notice that she always feels sad when she takes the Christmas decorations down. And then it dawned on her one year, well, it's my house. I can do what I want. And so she takes down, anything that's like specific to Christmas, but she leaves up some of the greens. She has some little fake trees that she puts on her fireplace, and she decorates for 6 weeks with like snowmen. And I love that idea. I thought, I have a whole bunch of tree ornaments that are snowmen. I could put down some cotton and make a little, put some little trees. And so I did that. And I put it on top of the shoe rack. It's a closed shoe rack with like a little cupboard. And I walk past it 100 times a day. And so it's like a visual reminder, even though we haven't had a lot of snow this year, even though those that are worried about climate change are like, we wish we had more snow because it's kind of weird that it's so warm in February like it is today. But it helps me adopt an attitude of like, welcome winter. And I bought a hand towel that I keep next to the sink in the bathroom that says, welcome winter. And I bought a little, this is all, I'm a thrift queen, so, none of these were expensive things. I bought a little sign that says welcome winter. That's very lovely. And I propped it up in front of the window so that when I look outside, and it's not especially beautiful because it's kind of dark and dingy and there's no lovely glittering snow or anything, it's just winter or it's raining. But still, I'm reminding myself to welcome it. So those are a couple things. Of course, if you're into sports or you're very fit, cross country skiing or hiking in the winter, or even just walking in the park. Those are all really good things. Moving is so important, as I'm sure you know, for mental health. And I sometimes in the winter, I'll just put on my coat and I'll go out and pick up sticks after a storm and break them in little pieces and throw them in my garden, just to be out and moving. I try to keep I try to read something that's winter friendly, like maybe a mystery or a novel or a nature book that is has winter in it, and the writing is beautiful and it inspires me. I have one right now from the library. It's called Winter Lust. It's kind of a funny name for a book, but it's little reflections on winter. Anything that helps me befriend. Um, One other idea, when I shared this once, somebody said, I keep my holiday tree up until after St. Patrick's Day. She said, first I decorate it for Christmas, then I take that down. I put hearts all over it for Valentine's Day. Then I take that down. I put shamrocks all over it for Valentine's Day. And of course, she keeps the lights on it. So that's another thing. I think lights, I have lights right now, white lights that people would think of as Christmas lights, but I wrap them around the bottom of the banister of my steps, and I hung little Beatrix Potter figures on it because I love those little, Benjamin Bunny and Peter Rabbit, and they just make me happy. My kids loved them when they were growing up, and unfortunately, they're all grown up now. They've turned into good people, but they're not little. So that comforts me. So it's that kind of stuff. And I think if you keep asking this excellent question, what kind of activities will help me make friends with winter, your own answers will arise. And maybe somebody else has a word of wisdom that they want to add. And that's a perfect setup, actually, for this quote by Buddhist Pema Chodron. You are the sky. Everything else is just the weather. And until I started on this process of making friends with winter, I was making the weather the primary thing and moaning and groaning about it and dreading it and worrying about whether it would snow and blah, blah, blah. But once I realized, it's in the me, I'm the sky. The rest of it is just weather to be dealt with. I don't know. It's just extremely freeing. So I will end with this reflection, which is also in the handouts that Matt is sending you. Because I know that many of you are here today because you do need refreshment and you are carrying a heavy load and you're taking care of people and yourselves in ways that are not always easy. So let's end with this. Take your tiredness, my child, and wrap it around yourself like a blanket in the cold winter months. Tiredness comes to make you a nest, to bring you to wear comfortable clothes, to make you sink into its warm embrace. I invite you to stay within yourself, without strength, without thoughts, without actions, like the snow that covers everything, to soften the world, to make it muffled, to protect it from noise. Accept the flakes of your tiredness and let yourself be completely covered by them. You will be reborn instead, like the seed in the ground. Do not resist your weariness. Do not reject it with 1,000 actions, 1,000 intentions, 1,000 feelings of guilt. I would add online shopping. It just wants to take you by the hand and lead you to sink into the void, right there where the source of every inner strength lies. So let us be encouragers of one another. Let us start conversations with people we love or people who support us about slow January or winter happiness or how to make friends with winter so that we can keep it, kind of top of the mind, tip of the tongue, instead of just falling into the moaning and groaning that we're often surrounded by. And I want to end by saying thank you so much for being here today because you have lots of other choices for what to do with your time. And thanks to Matt and NAMI for making it possible.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you also to everyone for joining us. I did include the link to the survey, the evaluation for this presentation in the chat. Please be sure to open that and complete it for us. It's short, it's anonymous. We appreciate your honest feedback. Again, I will ensure that this information, the handouts and everything, if you didn't get it earlier, I'll send a follow-up email and also include the link to the survey in that follow-up. And this recording will be available on our YouTube channel later this week. Thanks so much, Kim. Thanks to everyone. Hope you have a peaceful and cozy remaining winter season.
Amen. Bye, everybody.
Bye.